part 2.
Yeah,
Teams
recording has started. So we, everybody be good. As always, everybody is. If you're new here, welcome. This is Cloudy County Extension. This is a virtual extension office that exists only in the cloud. And Joe and I are computer nerds in Florida that support our extension programming here in the very hot and sunny state of Florida. I've looked at the weather in a few other places, Joe. It was like 50 something degrees yesterday morning in Arkansas. I'm very jealous of that.
Not that way this summer when we visited.
No, it's hot and wet all at the same time. But enough about that. Cloudy County is our little community that we are growing, and we are very thankful that you're here to learn about some cloudy stuff with us. We really have a passion for educating our extension agents and our educators on some of the tools that they might already have access to in their toolbox. And so the series of community calls that we have been on have been detailing a lot of those tools that, like I said, you may already have access to, but not really have a full understanding of it. There was a, Joe, I'm going to go sideways here real fast. There was a survey that was done that I'm going to drop a image of it in the chat. And we found this on the Extension Foundation site. And for those who aren't maybe not seeing the chat, I'll just talk about it. One of the questions was, when you adopt a new technology for use in your program or institution, what barriers do you need to overcome? Check all that apply. And so this really resonated with me because you extension agents, approximately, I forget how many filled this out, 330 it said that the number one obstacle to adopt a new technology was overcoming the learning curve. And then the second biggest thing was access to expertise and training. And the third thing was budget. So I hope that what we're doing here shows that you do have access to training. We're going to help you with that learning curve. And a lot of the tools that we're going to show you, you already own. Now, obviously, I can't speak on behalf of every university that you may be joining us from, but it's something you can look into. And there's a high chance, a high possibility. I mean, you're on a Teams call with me right now, so we know you have access to that. So that's our objective, is to help correct that fear that's in that question. That apparently those answers came from all of you. So, Joe, we talked about meetings last month, right? We're going to pivot a little bit and talk about bigger meetings. You want to break down for us this month's topic?
Sure. We're going to cover the second part here, and we're going to cover something called Teams webinars. And webinars are, in the Teams land, not too different than just a regular Teams meeting that we've been talking about. It really has your same interface that you work with. There's no real difference to that. It's all about some Teams settings and a registration system you get at the front end, where you can collect people who want to sign up for your webinar. So we're going to cover taking you through how to set up a webinar, some of the limitations and capabilities of webinars, how to ensure that it's the differences between it and a regular Teams meeting. We'll show you those. And I think this is going to be pretty slick, because we know that webinars are obviously very important. And the key aspect of those is kind of securing your meeting around, who can display their video, who can use their mic, and things like that. And we'll take you through that process.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of our agents got a crash course in that, at the start of the pandemic. And we've had a couple of years to get used to delivering programming using online tools like this. And so hopefully everybody's a little bit more comfortable or, willing to dive into this stuff a little bit, because we learned it out of necessity. But we've seen a big shift in our extension programming where they're realizing our reach is so much bigger now. We're pulling in people from other states. We're pulling people in from other countries, and that kind of programming is valuable. And we see that still playing a big part of extension education in this country. Is we're still having the ability to reach a large audience through an online program is still valid. having those relationships with your stakeholders and consumers and growers and stuff is obviously important, and having face-to-face programming still obviously super important. We have been so happy to see real people again. It's, being able to attend our Extension Professionals Association meeting a couple weeks ago in Florida was really nice. But there's it's very real that these online systems allow you to deliver programming to a very large audience. I mean, look at what is happening right now. A few of you are in Florida, but a lot of you are not. So very, very powerful. One of the major differences between a webinar and a meeting, and I'm not talking about Teams or any other product specifically, a webinar means that meeting has a registration component, and that is a concept of pulling the meeting invite rather than you pushing it. So in a regular meeting, you would put a whole bunch of people's names on the to field, and you would push out a calendar invite to them. With a webinar, you're actually requesting and hoping that people who want to consume your webinar are going to some sort of page. It could be another system too, where a lot of our folks use something like Eventbrite. It could be a custom system, event management system that your university is using. But they are pulling down the information. So that's a big conceptual difference between just a regular meeting and a webinar. The other thing is it's really highly moderated. Like Joe kind of already hinted at this. In last month's meeting, we broke down Microsoft Teams meetings, and we talked about what's called meeting options. And I'll go into that, and you're not just going to see our faces the whole time. We're actually going to share how to do this. So nobody wants to look at our faces for an hour, Joe. But we'll show you the meeting options, and those meeting options are in Teams land. Those are the security settings. Those are the things that you're going to want to make sure the right people have the right options, the right capabilities in the call. We've all heard about the bad things that happened when early on in 2020, when people were jumping into meetings who weren't supposed to be there. So protecting yourself by disabling their microphones, disabling their cameras. You can even turn the chat off entirely if you wanted to. Those types of things, webinars and Teams are going to help you do that. They're going to streamline that process for you. So when you choose a webinar option in Microsoft Teams, basically what you're telling Teams is, I want you to create a registration portal, and I want you to go ahead and preset all those security options for me so that my meeting is secure and set. Joe, you're also usually talking to a lot of people, right? I mean, ideally, if it's a webinar, it's usually a pretty large audience. What are we working with here in a Teams webinar?
What we're able to do in a webinar in Teams land is actually reach up to 1,000 people interactively. So that's where you could still have the chat enabled for that environment. We also will see where you can bring in just individual people if you want to enable them to bring their cameras on or their mics out of that group of people. You can actually scale beyond that also. At this point right now, we're in still this, Microsoft has us in this pandemic level. I don't know if they'll ever reduce it, but you can go up to 20,000 view-only participants with the right.
Sorry, what was that?
20,
how many?
Yeah, 20,000. So
okay.
Typically it's 10,000. It's extended to 20,000 right now. Who knows if that will ever drop back down, but it could potentially. But even 10,000 is certainly a significant number of people. And being able to do that with this tool, very likely, most people on this call are going to already have a license to be able to do that. And we'll show you that also to try to confirm that.
And we'll be very real with you here. A lot of our agents, like, these numbers are comical. A lot of our agents are like, if I had 1,000 people, I would love that. That would be a great problem to have. But we have had people exceed 300. And so there is some legitimacy here to looking at this, that it, without getting into industry stuff too much, if you have hit a ceiling, and you're looking at having to purchase a license for a webinar solution, knowing that Teams goes to that height gives you a solution that you can use immediately, and it gives you some headroom to grow if your program grew to that point. And I hope it does. I hope that your programs do grow to that point. That would be pretty amazing.
I think we have a mushroom farmer that's been doing some stuff that I think is approaching some pretty big numbers. So
yeah, there's a lot
worldwide.
of interesting topics that our agents are covering that are attracting a lot of attention. Like I said, those boundaries that you had for your in-person programming are gone when it's just one click of a button away from being able to participate. So Joe, you've got a hyperlink, I think, that we can drop in there that will show if there's any technical folks who want to dig into the limitations and specifications of Teams meetings. And I'll use the word meeting and webinar interchangeably because Joe already said this at the beginning. This is a big difference. A Teams meeting is no different than a Teams webinar as far as the functionality goes, as far as what are your capabilities. The only thing that a Teams webinar is doing for you, like I said, is it's streamlining those security options, and it's creating a website that people can go to register to sign up for your webinar. You don't even have to use that registration page. You could just create the Teams webinar and then copy the meeting information into whatever events platform you're already using. But Teams is going to create a registration portal for you, and we're going to show you how that works. So let me go ahead and get my screen shared here real quick, and we'll dig into some demos so that people don't see our faces so big.
Yeah, like you said, we have people using Eventbrite, Meetup, and some homegrown stuff that can push out these registrations also.
Yeah. Okay, so first thing that we're going to show you is a website. We actually talked about this on the very first ever Cloudy County community call. So if you were super bored and wanted to go watch that meeting where we broke down what is Office 365, we are going to show you a page that you can go to that you can check and see what kind of license your university has allocated to you. There is a requirement for the webinar functionality to have what is called an A3 or higher license. There's 3 licenses in academics. There's A1, which is a free license. There's A3, which is very common, especially in education, because that A3 entitles you to have the Office applications, you know, like Word and PowerPoint and Excel installed on your computer. It also licenses you to have Windows as the operating system on your computer. Pretty important. And then there's A5. So A3 and A5 both will have the webinar capability. So there's a site, we can drop a hyperlink to it in the chat, but it's really easy to remember. It's called myaccount.microsoft.com. When you log into myaccount.microsoft.com, you'll see this little landing page, and you can go down here to the bottom left to subscriptions. View subscriptions button over here on the right, top right box. And then you can scroll down and you can see what license has been assigned to you. So I have a Microsoft A3 for faculty license. That A3 for faculty license gives me access to webinars. Thank you, Stacy, for for that. He's really trying to distract me. So the A3 for faculty, I have webinar capability. Yes, I'm good to go. So that would be the first thing I would advise you to do if you're looking into this. If you have an A1 or, you know, I know there's a lot of hybrid type stuff out there where you may have a license from your local county government that you might have to use, and you may have an identity with your university. So check both and see, but really the way you're going to figure out which one you've got is myaccount.microsoft.com, log in with your university credentials or your government credentials and see what they've given you. And the next thing that we're going to talk about is how do I get to webinars? How do I even get there? Well, last month, we showed you how to schedule meetings through Microsoft Outlook, and we showed you how to schedule meetings through Microsoft Teams. To do a Teams webinar, you do need to use the Teams app to do it. So I'm going to pull this up and I'm going to go into my calendar. Up at the top right, up here, we have a little drop down. So it's not super obvious, but there's a little down arrow thing there next to where it says new meeting. If you bring that down, you're going to see a couple of options, the regular schedule meeting, webinar, and live event. Today, we are just going to be talking about webinar. But this is the beginning point. This is how you get to the page that's going to let you generate your registration and parameters of your meeting and invite your other speakers. So this looks pretty familiar. This is the same interface as scheduling a meeting. Like I said, there's no difference between a webinar and a Teams meeting except for the streamlined security and the registration page. And you can see Teams is doing a pretty good job here of informing me like, hey, here's how you change your registration options. Here's how you set up the page. Here's how you preview what it's going to look like. And it's telling me straight up that all attendees are muted by default and only presenters are going to be able to share content. So it's making that, it's taking out a lot of the guesswork for me on how do I make sure the right people have the right access. So first thing I'm going to start with is exactly what Teams is asking me to do. I'm going to check my registration. So the first thing is you can have two different, well, I guess technically three different kinds of registration. If you made it no registration, it's not a webinar anymore. You've taken the registration page off. You can have people in your organization. This could be useful for maybe a town hall inside your university. But this option means that the folks who are signing up must have a valid identity in your university. And then the more useful one, in my opinion, is the people you're educating are out there in the general public, right? They're not just people in your university. So you're going to want to select the for everyone option. We're going to give our webinar a name. And the stuff that you type in here, Joe, how do I describe this? I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but this meeting invitation that I'm creating is only going to be seen by the people who I'm inviting as speakers. Right.
You're looking at a standard meeting appointment interface right now.
Let's go Friday. We'll do it at 2 o'clock. Make it an hour long. Now, there's a nuance to this that I feel like is very important to point out. Let's say your webinar is scheduled to start at 2 o'clock. And Joe is the speaker, and then maybe I've also got Captain Kirk. So Joe and Captain Kirk are my speakers. I'm the one organizing the event. The webinar is scheduled to start at 2 p.m. Do you want Joe and Captain Kirk joining the meeting at 2 o'clock? Definitely not. You want them joining early. So a trick you can do here is remember what I said, the people who are going to be receiving this invite that I'm creating are only my speakers. Maybe I want them to join a little bit early to be, a little bit extra careful. So I'm going to bump this to 1:30.
Want to do a mic check and video check.
Yeah. You want to make sure they sound good, they look good, they've shared their screen, they're familiar with the controls. All of those types of things are really important. I guess best practices probably when you're doing a webinar is make sure your tech is right before all your people start coming in. So you don't want to figure it out while there's 100 people waiting for it. So please arrive early. You can put whatever you want here because again, only the people who are on this line are going to receive any of the content that you put down here. So I'm just going to leave that the way it is. Now, also notice what Teams is doing here. There's a hyperlink right here that says view the registration form. So do you want your attendees to register? This is the link that you would create if you were going to use the Microsoft Teams registration component. So if you click view registration form, you get this little pop-out box. And now I'm actually designing the registration page that attendees would see. And the really cool thing here is notice the difference. There's a date and time here, and there's a date and time here. This is important. You want to make sure that these are in alignment. It's automatically chosen today, which is not when my webinar is. My webinar is on the 16th. It would be nice if Microsoft kind of saw that and carried that over, that would be wonderful. But what you're putting in this box, that was a bad circle. What you're putting in this box is the information that is going to be sent to anybody who signs up for your webinar. And it can differ from the invitation that you sent only to your speakers. Is that making sense, Joe? Like in my, it's kind of weird, but it's how it works. So
I think it's really helpful to, yeah, definitely to really pay attention to this step, because being able to ensure that your speakers, the presenters, understand to get there a little early. This is a really helpful step.
Yeah, and I just noticed that my I kind of made a boo-boo here. I wanted my webinar to be an hour long, but when I bumped this forward 30 minutes, it bumped my end time forward by 30 minutes. It wouldn't end my webinar. It wouldn't affect anybody who's on the call and hang it up or anything like that. It's just annoying. So I'm going to make sure I fix that. So this is technically an hour and a half long, but what my attendees are going to get is from 2 to 3. So what happens when somebody fills this out? And I'm actually going to go through the process of creating this registration page, and then I'm going to drop it into the meeting chat. And I'd like it if some of you would actually fill it out. You don't have to, there's not going to be a webinar on Friday, but if you would fill it out, you'll actually get to experience what your attendees would see. And this is a very important part of the process. Like, you should definitely mock this up if you're considering using webinars in Teams. You should do a full-on mock-up. Make your page, make your registration, sign up for it, sign up your Hotmail, sign up your Gmail, sign up your grandma, do everything that you can do to get an idea of what is the experience that my my attendees are going to see. So we've got the title, we've got the time, and then you can create a description. We're going to teach cloudy things. So you could obviously you want to make that a lot more descriptive. You can also add speaker information. So our speakers are Joe and Captain Kirk. So I'm going to add a speaker, and it's going to be Joe Gasper. I can put in some information about his bio. He's a cloud solutions architect. Right. And then I'm going to add another speaker, and that's going to be Captain Kirk. And he's going to be the greatest captain of all time, right? The original.
And one reason to try to mock this up a bit is we've noticed that in these fields for the speakers, you notice it doesn't accept sort of some rich text like you get with the description, bold and italics. The if you try to put a paragraph and some things like that in there, it seems to kind of ignore some of that. So you don't. There seem to be implying they're working on better, some better bios and things like that, and pictures. So we're hoping to see that sometime later. But right now, that's just very basic what you get in there for the speaker information.
Yeah, that's a good point. This is version 1 of Teams webinars, this registration thing. And there was a big Microsoft conference a couple of months ago where they actually announced some changes that are coming to the webinar registration system, and the webinars as a whole are going to be improved quite a bit. So we can drop a link to that if you're interested in seeing some screenshots of what things might look like. And if you're from the future and you're watching this recording and webinars don't look like this anymore, I'm sorry, I don't know when they're going to release those things. But there are some improvements coming here, especially around the richness of the registration page, like Joe was talking about, the ability to pull in, headshots of the speakers and profile pictures and things like that, and some other formatting. Okay, so we've got our questions over here. This is the one that I feel like if I were an extension agent and I were using the registration page built into Teams, this is an important one to pay attention to. You have a first name, last name, and email. Those are required. Like, I have to know who you are, and I have to know where to send the meeting invite. But we know that you're required to collect all kinds of other data points, right? So I think our agents, I don't know if any of our agents are here, but if they could, maybe one of our Florida agents drop in the chat, there's 3 things that you got to collect. And so you have the opportunity to add those as additional fields on the registration page. So I can go add a field, and it's going to give me pre things, right? It's going to give me, you know, like things that I could like pre-created questions, but I also have custom question. So if I go to custom question, I have 2 question types that I can ask for. I can do a open text input, or I can provide a drop down box of choices. So if I go choices and I say, what's your favorite candy? I can also opt to make this question a requirement or optional. So by default, it's optional. We're going to make this one required. We're going to add a few different options. Bears, Twizzlers, Joe, what's runts? Here we go. that's random. So
Snickers, come on, some Snickers.
Snickers. Okay, we'll go Snickers. That was the name of our last hamster. She was sweet. So first name, last name, email, and a custom question, which is what's your favorite candy? I see people in there putting some things in the chat that are very helpful. There's extension agents are collecting demographic information for their end of year reporting. Do you need any kind of accommodation? I'm so happy that that was brought up, because some of the things that Teams webinars are doing directly meet accommodation requests. So there's some things that it does now around PowerPoint Live that's really incredible, and there's some things that are coming soon. Like, I don't want to derail it too bad. If you're on this call and you see your meeting controls up at the top, click the 3 dots that say more, and then turn on live captions. So you're going to see show captions somewhere in there. Yeah, turn on live captions is what it says. And so you're actually going to see what I'm saying and who said it as I'm saying it. And this is almost instantaneous, and it's very accurate in our experience. Launching this month in September, Microsoft is going to start offering the option for those live captions to be translated as the people are speaking. So you're going to be able to reach a very wide audience of speakers or of different languages using this too. Let me finish this real quick, because I want to get a few of you to sign up for this. I'm sorry about my dog. Joe, is that loud?
Not hearing it.
No. Oh, wow. I just heard FedEx drive off. So the other thing that you can, to finish this off, to really make this look nice, I'm going to have to upload an image, but I have a tool that I like to use to create the registration images. I actually use PowerPoint. So I'm going to show you a trick that I use to create a custom registration banner on my webinars. So I'm going to insert, I'm in PowerPoint. I just opened up a blank PowerPoint. I'm going to go to pictures, and this is a hidden gem that we have really tried to advocate for to our extension agents. Stock images in PowerPoint. You are allowed to use these. You are allowed to create documentation and presentations and flyers and all kinds of stuff, and you are allowed to use this massive library of stock images. And there's some search here that you can do. So we're doing a Cloudy County demo webinar, right? So let's type in the word cloud and see what kind of pictures do I get for clouds. Maybe not a tornado. Let's not choose that one. We'll just go with this pink one here. No, I like dark stuff. Let's go with this black and white one here. I like that one. Ooh, no, lightning. Lightning's better. So, because we're in Florida, lots of lightning here. So I've taken this image and I've dropped it into PowerPoint. I'm going to resize it. Write this number down, but it is 12.24 inches by 1.6 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and change this, 12.24. And now I'm going to use the crop tool in PowerPoint. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to crop, and I'm going to drag this to one part of the image. And I'm shooting for this number up here to this currently 1.26. I'm shooting for that to be pretty close to 1.6. A little bit bigger. Close enough. So I'm going to hit escape. Now I'm going to insert a text box. And I'm going to change my font to one of my favorite fonts. Semi-bold. I'm going to make it white, and we're going to make it big. And we're going to do cloudy, not caps, Cloudy County demo webinar 9/16. And I'll make this big. And I also like to do a little drop shadow on there. So do
deep into the tips here.
Do what?
Deep into the tips here.
Yeah, yeah. So once I get all this set up, I'm going to copy it all and I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say save as picture. And I'll just save it to my desktop, and it's going to be a webinar banner. I know that felt like a rabbit hole, but I feel like this is practical, useful information that you can use to create banners for your webinars. So now that I'm in here, I'm going to click upload an image. I'm going to browse to my desktop where that image was, and boom, it just fits. It's done. I don't have to lose anything. It didn't crop off the edges. I got this cool picture in there. And because I'm using a Microsoft product, I'm totally cool to use any of these stock images how I want, as you know, in this. And if you create anything in PowerPoint using stock images and export it as a picture like I just did, that's still okay. That's totally okay to do that. So I'm going to click save. And I can also preview this by clicking the view in browser. So it's just going to pop me out to my browser because that's what it said. And this is what the webinar registration form would look like to anybody who wanted to come sign up for my webinar. I'm happy with that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the registration link and get ready to send it to all of you. Before I do that, though, I'm going to make sure that my speakers have the invite that they need. So all this is good, and we'll click send. So here we go. This is a gnarly looking link. If your university has some sort of URL shortener or something that allows you to track clicks and analytics on it, use it. Because check that thing out. That's massive. I wouldn't click that. So there's lots of options out there, Bitly and Tiny URL and all kinds of stuff. And a lot of universities have their own system where they can do stuff like that too.
You want to definitely hide that behind a true hyperlink.
Yeah, yeah. Now, if some of you could click on that and sign up, I would appreciate it. Again, I'm not asking you to be anywhere on Friday. This is just for the purpose of the demonstration. So I'm going to go back into that meeting because last month we talked to you about meeting options, and we told you how important it is to, oops, that's the wrong meeting. This meeting and edit it. We talked to you last month about how important it is to check your meeting options and make sure they're set the way that you want them set for your meetings, especially if you're going to have people from the general public joining. So I go right back into my meeting, and I'm going to click on meeting options, which is going to pop me out to my browser. And this is the stuff that's important that webinars are doing for you. It's automatically creating a lobby setting. It's automatically turning off some of these really annoying options of every single time somebody joins by telephone, it announces their name, which is a disruption. It's automatically selecting that only specific people can present, and it's automatically put the people that I put on the required line as the speakers. It's turned off everybody's microphone and their camera, and it's set the meeting chat to where they're only allowed to chat if they're actively on the call. That's a big shift in how Teams works versus a few of the other meeting platforms, is the the meeting chat lives on and is persistent. I'm actually a member of lots of meetings that meet once a month, but we use the chat throughout the month just to keep up with each other or drop a question in. Maybe we haven't met yet, but I want to go ahead and preload some information into the chat. So that's a big difference, right? Joe, did I forget anything here? I guess this isn't set in stone, right? Like what is here can be modified on the fly during the call, right?
Yeah, and especially I'm looking at something on there that maybe like record automatically. Just, if you're really, really important to get something recorded, as soon as somebody starts that recording, it's going to start or starts that meeting, it's going to start recording, things like that. You might want to be the first person on that to start your meeting up, but I don't know if you want to talk about Q&A at this point.
I have opinions there.
Yeah.
This is enticing. This right here is very enticing. But I'm going to tell you the reality of it for right now. The Q&A meeting app is actually a separate app that gets added to the meeting. Doesn't work for anybody who joins the meeting using their web browser, which in my opinion, and y'all can validate this for me, yes or no, I feel like a lot of your people, if you were doing this in Teams, are probably just clicking on a link and it's opening up Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or whatever, and they're joining the call. They're probably not joining through the full-fledged Microsoft Teams app. So that immediately makes the Q&A a lot less useful than you would think. Like everything else that we've said, it is changing. The web experience in Teams is going to align with the app experience in Teams, and that is going to Q&A will work. And we, Joe and I, have actually seen that in real life, so I know it's happening. I know it's real. So maybe let me change this. No, I'll leave that the same. So there's really nothing for me to save. I'm just validating and verifying that this works the way that I want. So I saw a question about, does it collect attendance data, timestamps, and such? So I'm glad that came up because that's the next thing we're going to look at. Back in my meeting details pane, this is through my Teams app in the calendar node here. I click on my meeting, and this is my meeting details. There's a tab up here at the top called attendance. Right now, the webinar hasn't actually happened yet, so there is no attendance, but there is registrations. Hopefully, if y'all were helping me out. There we go. So I can see people who have registered. I can see how many hits my registration page has. I can see how many people of those hits have registered. If you use something like the URL trackers or shorteners or something like that, you'll probably get better statistics as far as like unique clicks and stuff like that goes, that you could then compare to, okay, well, 100 people clicked it, but only 25 of them signed up. Like maybe I need to reword something. That can be useful information that you can gather. But you can get this and you can download this up here as an Excel spreadsheet and then do more stuff with it later. And we actually have a webinar. I'm not going to fire this webinar up, but we have a webinar that Joe and I did last week that we did it for y'all because we wanted to have some real world data that I can show you. So let me keep going here.
Yeah, you might download that file for maybe you want to get your people who are registered and occasionally send them updated emails as you get closer to the webinar.
Yeah, while we're talking about that, let me go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna download this file. Oops, I downloaded it a couple of times. I'm on File Explorer. It should be in my downloads, and we'll take a look and see what the actual data looks like. So pretty simple, but I've got your answers. A lot of people like gummy bears. A lot of people like Snickers. Nobody liked Twizzlers. Sorry, Tatiana, it's not a deal breaker this time. So one thing you can do for communications is you can grab this whole column here, right? And you can open up and create a new email message in Microsoft Outlook. Click on the CC line, go into the BCC field and just Control V. Dump them all in there. And then you can do check names if you want to, and it will make them all individual recipients. This is a really easy way for you to send out a thanks for registering, you know, whatever. You all got emails from the registration system, but this would be if you had more communications. Maybe there's some prerequisites. Maybe there's some assets that you want to make sure they have access to. You could actually send out a hyperlink, share through OneDrive or whatever to all the people who have registered for your webinar like 24 hours before the webinar goes live. This is a really good way to do that. And then, like I said, it's super easy. Control C, Control V, drop them all in there. Excel makes it really easy to just drop in a massive list of recipients. Make sure you use BCC though. You don't want to create a reply all storm, and you don't want to necessarily expose the email addresses of other recipients to other people who are on the webinar, in my opinion. What do you think, Joe? That seems sensible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is useful information. I can see this also coming over into your reporting because you're gathering that information in advance, and you can watch this sheet, download it. It's not a live updated Excel spreadsheet, so you would need to download the registration on demand and then open it up and look at it. But you would know if you had any kind of accommodations that you need to make and anything like that. So I'm not going to save this. I think, Joe, I'm going to go a little crazy here. I'm actually going to try to start this webinar up. I don't have any like camera on this computer or anything, so it's just going to be kind of boring looking. That's fun. So I'm going to take the meeting invite and let's go to people. Share the invite. I'm actually going to open it on a third computer. So I'm running 3 versions of Teams at the same time here. Let's see how this goes. And I'm going to show you what happens when somebody tries to join this call and they are not on the invite list. So on the left side, you see that there's somebody waiting in the lobby. So this is what's going to happen right before your webinar starts, is the lobby is going to start to pile up. There's going to be a lot of people that probably join 10 minutes early, 15 minutes early. So that's, again, why you want your other speakers to be there way in advance. 30 minutes is what I would probably recommend. Get your tech checks done. Throw up a slide that has like a "we'll get started soon" or something like that. And then as people come in, you can start letting them in from the lobby. Now, let's say that Captain Kirk couldn't make it. Captain Kirk couldn't make it, or Captain Kirk, got sick or whatever, and Jean-Luc Picard is actually going to take his place. And I didn't update the meeting invite. Oh no, what do? He's not going to come in as a presenter. How am I going to fix this? It is so easy. I see Captain Picard in the list waiting in the lobby. I admit only Captain Picard. You'll see him come in as an attendee. So he's down here, and we notice that his microphone and his camera have been disabled. So he can't speak yet. All you have to do as a presenter, anybody who's up here in the presenters area can go to Captain Picard, right mouse click, and say, make a presenter. And notice it's going to say what they can do. Change role. Done. Captain Picard is now a speaker. That's how easy it is. You don't have to recreate your invite. You don't have to have a panic attack. You can fix it on the fly from any single person who has joined this call. They do not even need to be a member of your organization. They can be industry partner. They can be from another university. They can be from the general public. So here's Joe. Joe has joined the meeting, right? Joe, what do you want me to do with this here?
Maybe at some point consider like opening the lobby.
Good point. Yeah. So we had a conversation about this last week. Those meeting options that I told you about, where you specified the lobby settings, and I said, don't worry, they're not set in stone. It's not permanent. You can actually change the meeting options from the meeting itself while you're in the call. And this is important. This is a pro tip, I would say. You're going to have people coming in, piling into the lobby. Every time they come into the lobby, you're going to get a little pop-up that says somebody's waiting into the lobby. That's distracting. You don't want that, right? So once it comes to 2 o'clock and our webinar is supposed to start, you'll see in the lobby an admit all button. When you click admit all, it's going to take every single person who's currently waiting and it's going to allow them into the meeting. But we want to prevent people who are coming into the meeting in the future from being stuck in the lobby and prevent that distraction. So the way that you do that is, as a organizer of the meeting, you are going to click on the meatballs, and then you're going to click on meeting options. This is going to give you a little panel over here on the right-hand side that is going to allow you to tweak those meeting options while the meeting is actively running. So let's do that. We'll go meeting options. Notice these are all the same questions that I showed you on that web page earlier. Who can bypass the lobby? Everyone. Scroll down, click save. And now anybody who clicks on the meeting link, which theoretically are only people who've registered, are just going to come into the meeting, but they're going to come in muted with no camera. So that's the safe thing, right? So, okay, let's talk about options for sharing inside of a Teams webinar. I don't want to get too into this, but one of my favorite things in the whole world is PowerPoint Live. PowerPoint Live is a wonderful, wonderful tool. It's a whole nother meeting. We'll cover this in the future, but if you haven't played around with it, you should certainly try it. I'm going to go and share, and we're going to click on a slide here. And this is PowerPoint Live. This is wonderful. This is a super accessible tool. This is a very good way of delivering your slides to other people without sharing your screen. Like, I'm not sharing my screen here. Notice it didn't minimize my screen. Everything's built right into the Teams meeting window. Excuse me. One thing about this that is amazing is Captain Jean-Luc Picard. He can take control of those slides. So look at what just happened. We're actually sharing control of these slides with each other. We're co-presenting. He's doing slide 1. I'm doing slide 2. So he's going to advance to the next slide. I'm going to go ahead and click it. So now we're on slide 2. You can see down here, we're on slide 2 out of 4. This one's my turn. I can click take control. I've just taken control of the presentation back from him. I love this tool. Another thing that this does for your participants is they have some options on how they consume this content. You can click on the 3 dots and check this out. Oh, it just translated all the text on my slide into a different language. Maybe I have a vision impairment. I can get high contrast mode, which my slides are already high contrast, so there wasn't a whole lot of work for it to do there. I like to do very high contrast slides, dark background, white text. I feel like that's a very, it's viewable and inclusive way to make some slides. Question, does PowerPoint Live work with the other meeting vendors? The answer to that is no. This is a Teams only feature, and it is certainly worthy of everybody checking it out. It is amazing. Joe and I did a presentation on it at the Ag Agents meeting in West Palm. There's so many advantages to this. The bandwidth savings that come along with it, the accessibility, the seamless passing around of control. It's just wow. Like I said, we haven't worked up to it yet, but we're going to do a Cloudy County call all about PowerPoint Live, and I can't wait to share it with you and show it to you. Some other advantages of PowerPoint Live while we're still on my mind is hyperlinks are clickable. Like the links that are on your slide, the audience can actually click them. So if you reference a resource or think about a survey, like you've got a survey that you want everybody on the call to fill out. You know, we're used to QR codes and short URLs and stuff like that. You could just make it a hyperlink and drop it right smack in the middle of your slide and put arrows at it that say like, click here, you know, and people could actually click it and it will open up, go straight to that site on their computer. So there's this interactive element to the slides as well that people get. They get some control and some it's more immersive, I would say. Put these back to original and keep going. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut this webinar down. So we're done. And I'm going to show you what the outcome was of the webinar that we did last week, because we're getting low on time here. Joe, have I forgotten anything?
Maybe well, this one, you don't get any type of survey at the end, do we? How well we've done in that survey. So we'll have to talk about that in a different session, more around the PowerPoint Live.
Okay, so I guess I could probably do it with this one that we've already got. If I go back to attendance, now let me do it with the one that we did last week, just because I feel like we'll need to blur out. We are going to take a little longer uploading this recording because I want to make sure I blur out everybody's like emails and stuff. I don't want to expose anything. So Joe and I did a webinar last week called Wrangling the Cloud and Becoming a Digital Agent. And it was a lot of fun. If anybody from this call was there, thank you for joining us. So this one's already done. Now, one of the things that Teams does that's so convenient is it creates this nice little package. And we talked about this last month, but it creates this nice little package that gives me all of the things. These are called meeting artifacts. It gives me all of the meeting artifacts that were generated from that meeting. I get the recording, the transcript, the attendance, and a prompt to follow up with my people. So if I click on the recording, it takes me to stream. I can watch my recording and I have my transcript all on the side here. So if I click on the transcript, watch the bar on the meeting. Oops, mute that. That was annoying. So this is super cool. You can share this stream player up here. You can share this with anyone. So I can make anyone with this link and boom, they can watch the recording and they get this interface that has the transcript in it. You could also download the video and you could upload it to another platform like YouTube. We did that. We do that every single month with these calls. And now I'll show off some of the nuances that are a little bit different of the attendance. So if I download the attendance, if I look at the attendance, I'm going to go ahead and download it so that you can see what we're getting here. Yeah. So the attendance is broken out into different sections. So it's kind of gnarly looking. Let's see how bad it goes if I do that. That's not too bad. So this section here are the actual participants, the people who came to the call. I can get some things like their in-meeting duration. How long were they there for? So that would be something important if you had something that required a certain amount of time of participation. I'm going to get when they joined and when they left. And then over here on the side, and this is a little, I don't know why it builds it out this way, but over on the side is where I'm going to get all the people who actually registered for it. Right. So that's kind of weird. So this doesn't look a whole lot different. Joe, I've got section 2 of participants, and then I've got section 3 of in-meeting activities. Well, I'm a little stumped at this one. I guess that just shows their role. So you would probably, as a webinar host, you would only be curious about the people who are listed as attendees. So But again, what I did last month, or last week rather, was I went over to this section over here. I highlighted this entire column of data. I pasted it into the blind carbon copy field inside of Outlook, and I sent out a thank you for registering, even if they didn't come, because I know a lot of you are very familiar with the fact that people register for webinars just so that they can, if they can't make it, they can get the recording. And so I took this data and I sent this out as a mass blind carbon copy email, and I sent them a link to the YouTube video that where I had uploaded my recording. You can use any video hosting platform that you like. If you have a Vimeo account, or if you just want, again, you want to use that built-in stream player, you could do that too. But I know analytics are important, and you're going to get a lot of analytics from a platform like YouTube. Whew, that was a lot. That was a whole bunch of information. Let's see here if we got some questions in the chat. Joe, looks like you just got one. Bandwidth for this interface. Live event was a huge bandwidth. Live events are a different ballgame. I actually see with the capacity that meetings have now. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. We'll just chit chat about this. With the capacity of what Teams meetings have of 1,000 people, live events are probably less common now. A Microsoft Teams live event won't go too far down that path, but a Microsoft Teams live event is included with that same A3 license, and it is a more technical, it's considered a production. Like, you need to have backup. You need to have a co-pilot running this with you, because there's going to be a person who plays the role of a producer, but the audience is huge. It scales to 20,000 people right away. There's no possibility for you to see the audience. There's no possibility for you to hear the audience. They have no mic, no camera. There's no way to do it. There's a built-in Q&A. It is pretty amazing, but it's a big undertaking. I think Teams meetings are going to take the stage, so to speak, when it comes to doing those large meetings. One thing that we didn't really talk about that I'll just say now is you do, because you saw me have the ability to promote a person from an attendee to a presenter, that means that you can on the fly make decisions about your participants. What do I mean by that? One of the things that you can do that's really helpful is, like, at the end of your webinar, you want to open up for Q&A, right? So everybody on this call should see up at the very top of your control bar, there's a little hand, and it has a little smiley face next to it. It says reactions. You can use the raise hand function. And when somebody raises their hand, they're going to move up to the top of the participants list. Like, I can see that Joe just raised his hand. So if you all click on the people menu of the call right now, you'll see that Joe's hand is up and Daniel's hand is up. A whole bunch of people's hands are up, but check out the numbers next to it. It's actually going to tell me, and it's going to order them chronologically based on who raised their hand first and in what order. So that's very helpful. It's also very fun for, like, Jeopardy or something, you know, like, use it like a buzzer. So when their hand goes up, that moves them to the top of the list, and you can right mouse click on that person's identity in the meeting, and you can selectively say, I want to allow this person to use their microphone. That means you don't have to just open the floodgates of microphones to, you know, however many people are on the call. You can pick selective people and allow them to unmute their mic, and then tell them, hey, you can unmute if you want to come off mute and ask your question. So that's the last tip that I think we're going to be able to fit into this. That was an absolute fire hose of information about Teams webinars. Whoa. So Joe and I are going to hang out on the call. Typically, we'll usually be here for another 30 minutes. And if you do want to hang out with us and ask some questions, come off mute, talk to us. It doesn't even have to be about webinars. Ask us whatever. We just want to be your friend. So we'll hang out on the call and try to take those questions. So, Joe, you got anything?
No, it's great.
Final words of wisdom?
Yeah. We'll see if anybody joins the webinar on Friday. But
Oh no, I forgot. Yeah, if you register for that, don't come. I forgot. I should like, I don't know.
We'll
I guess
leave
I
a
need to
video running
practice.
for you or something. So
I should practice canceling a webinar. But I would advise, my last final word of wisdom would be practice. If you have an A3 license and you have the ability to schedule a webinar, it doesn't cost you anything to do it. Give it a try. Like I said, register with fake accounts, register with your personal accounts, use your iPad, use your laptop, use your smartphone, try to join it through as many ways as you can. Teams will work on anything. Anything that's connected to the internet is probably going to have a Teams client or a web browser that it can use to join a meeting. So see what that experience is going to look like. Because I know that your clientele, you've got a wide variety. So, you might be working with master gardeners, you might be working with growers, kind of try to simulate what you feel like they're going to see, and give it a dry run. I think that's very critical to having a successful webinar. All right, I'm going to kill the recording, and like I said, I'll continue to hang out. And if you want to chat with us, we would love to. We'd love to talk. But thanks for joining the September Cloudy County Community Call, and we will see you next month.